Have you ever looked and thought, we need standards in place, we need better boundaries, and we need to prepare more intently for what's coming at us this week or this day? I have. I know I've been there. I'm sure you have too. The standard is the standard. As much as I hate the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin, when he was the head coach there, he used to say it so well. The standard is the standard. Ben Newman talks about standard over feelings, talks about how we drive through this, talks about how we have clarity. And that's one of the things we're here today. We're talking about standards, we're talking about boundaries and preparation. These are the daily systems that reduce chaos. Welcome into the Third and 30 podcast. This is a coaching and leadership podcast where we believe opportunity is everything and preparation breeds confidence. We're here today to help give every leader out there a little bit more confidence. Last week, we were on the show talking about our summer leadership series, and we're continuing that with episode 3 today, which I just highlighted to you. What we had last time was episode 2. We talked about the H cube formula. We had such a good time talking through that with Carrie Chandler on board, and we were able to talk about health, heart, and habits and how those influence us to be the best leaders that we can be and how they help us to show up in the ways everyone is expecting of us. Today, we're going to dive into another special conversation and we're going to hit standards, boundaries, and preparation. And we're going to talk boundaries with one of the best in the business at talking us through this, as I have our special guest, Shawna Marie Bryant, on today. She has done a ton of work in two really distinctively different avenues of going into the corporate world and speaking boundaries and how we can have organizational energy through these boundaries and help us become better leaders. And she's also done this through a faith-based relationship as well. So she really has two great avenues that she travels on. We're excited to have her on the show today. Shawna, welcome aboard.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Hopefully, I said enough to give you all a great overview without me going into 100 things, because what I don't want to do is give away everything she's going to talk about today. We want to keep it fresh. We want to keep it alive and energetic without me spoiling all the good stuff. Shawna's got a great background that she's going to bring to the table today. She is a keynote speaker. She's a coach. She is able to talk with leaders and really inspire them. And I will tell you right now, just in my conversations with her through a program we're a part of, our BBG program, that's the Brand Builders Group, we've been able to have many conversations. And what I've been able to learn from her and her story and her background's amazing. She's going to really enlighten us today. So I'm excited for that. Today, we're going to be talking about how leaders can create clarity, protect their energy with these boundaries we highlighted, and intentionally prepare for the future instead of reacting all day long. These are really the keys to quality leadership, and I'm really excited to bring these to you today. So the first one, Shawna, that I want to dive into is the standards.
Yes,
Obviously, I hit the standards hard when I had the opening intro today because I believe in the standards. I went to a place in the last 5 years where I was the director. And here's what I will say: the standards are the absolute backbone of leadership clarity. Absolute backbone, hands down. There's no ifs,
I would
ands, or
agree.
buts about it.
Yes.
And when I got there, this was back in 2020. Let's be real, 2020 was ambiguous as all get
Crazy
out
year.
anyway.
Yes.
August 2020, I got there and there was no standard. Like, we didn't even have an expectation. We didn't have standards to follow, what behavior is good, what behaviors are bad. And I'm not talking about like the way you act, I'm talking about the behaviors of running business. Zero consistency. Standards absolutely define our expectations, our behavior, and the consistency at which we operate. Without those standards in place, you have absolute chaos.
Agreed. I love that quote that you said. Was it Pittsburgh Steelers coach? What was that again? That was so good.
Yeah, and you're making me double quote it now, and I hate the Steelers. I'm from Cleveland. So
Oops.
The Pittsburgh Steelers former head coach. No, you bring up a great point. So let's talk about it again. Mike Tomlin, he was the head coach. He is not now. Mike McCarthy is the head coach now. Mike Tomlin was there for a very long time. And his thing that he came in and said, the standard is the standard. This is who we are. We have the way we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to do it, and you're on board with that or you're not.
So important. That is so true. I believe too that you won't have standards, or excuse me, you won't have boundaries if you don't have standards, because those standards basically draw the line. This is everything outside of these standards is something, we're not going to do, and everything inside is a yes. And so standards are crucial to having boundaries as well.
Yeah, you're 100% right there. And what I really like that you just said also kind of takes away from that fake line people say is, we're drawing the line in the sand.
Mhm.
No, we're not. When you draw the line in the sand, that line can easily be wiped away and you lose your boundary, you lose your standard. The consistency and that level of expectation is gone in the
That's a good
sand.
point. I'm from California. I go to the beach a lot. And yeah, you draw a line in the sand and it won't last. That's a
No.
good point.
Yeah, and what we're doing now is we're painting a definitive line on the wall that says, here's the standard. Be above this line in what we do and how we do it. Without standards, we mentioned it earlier, is everything is subjective. People don't know
Right.
necessarily what they're diving into. And well, I thought it could be this way. Okay, great. What made you think it could be that way? Well,
Right.
I just thought I could massage the situation a little bit, or I thought I could do
You're
this.
reminding me of one of my favorite examples of this very thing is the standards, the values they can be drilled down into these two sentences because you are going to have an entirely different perspective. If your business says that you want to make money at any cost,
Mm,
that's a standard. If your company says people matter more than profits, you can see how just those two simple little standards, you're going to make money no matter what, or people matter more than profits. And we can probably name companies right now that adhere to one or the other standard, but that is going to drive every decision, everything that they do.
that's a great point. It really is. And even in the last podcast we did with this summer, because you and I are now recording episode 3 of the Summer Leadership Podcast. And now this is the second time people over process has been a mutual conversation. And it's so important because we
It
are
is.
in a people oriented world. And how do we build people up? Well, standards anchor the decision making. They anchor our policies, right? And our expectations. And if we put people over the process and have the people involved in this and they help drive the way, we come up with clear communication. Wow, we have a system in place.
That's right.
And
And a
we
better system, I think.
I would agree with you on that. And we know, well, I say we, I know my process is build systems that create freedom. That's what
Mm,
I'm all about. And we can't build systems that create freedom if we don't have a standard
that's
and if
right.
we don't communicate and if we don't put people first and have people involved in creating the systems. So those are some of the biggest things that I see. Shawna, if we could, you had talked a little bit about standards and the boundaries. You have to have standards to be able to put boundaries. So before we dive
Mm,
totally into the boundaries part, you had also alluded to about values. Walk me through a
yes,
little bit more about like standards and how they really kind of dictate those values and
they
values
do.
come to fruition.
Absolutely. Well, I actually have a client that has gone through quite a transition in leadership, almost a complete transition where they've been around for so long, like 70 years, that all of the
Wow.
founding members have now retired, right, and moved on. And so everyone in the organization at the top levels were not there when the organization was formed. And they realized that kind of like what you were saying about when you came into that job a while ago, they didn't really have those values, those core values. I've worked at organizations where they're, painted on the wall,
Mm,
integrity, compassion, whatever they are. But they're so important because when you have those core values, you know what standards to set. And again, then you can set your boundaries. And so I think it really starts with the core values. What do we value most? Is, people over process, people over profits, something that we value most. And you're going to drill that down into whatever those core values are. And you had already mentioned that you and I met through Brand Builders Group, and they are such a wonderful example of that. I love how their values are people. They even have a process of developing, the funnels and all of those things that they call revenue engine. Well, they call it that because, of course, we're all in business to make money. We all want to make a profit. We want to do the thing that's going to help us land those contracts, get those clients, do those deals. But once you get into the program, they say, we really, behind the scenes, we call it, right? Instead of revenue engine, they call it relationship engine
hmm
because they know it's all about the relationships, it's all about the people. And you see that in their standards, and it's in there. Now, I don't know that I know their core values, but I absolutely can guess at what they are based on what I know their standards to
hmm
be as a company.
Yeah, that's well said. I appreciate hearing that. And you bringing this values piece to the forefront is really important because I can tell you that I was working with a organization back in the spring, and their biggest thing was like, hey, let's go through the decision making process on things. We have some policies that don't quite align, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then as I was actually doing a presentation at a state conference, and then a couple people hit me up about, hey, can you work with us on this stuff? And I said, okay, yeah, that sounds great. So we got together and did some work. Well, what they wanted work on was developing values because of what you just said.
Yeah,
Well, we don't know exactly the standard. We don't really have values. The city as a whole developed a couple for city council. So we just loosely follow them. They don't really align with us necessarily in how we serve the community. I was like, okay, hmm. Like, yeah, we don't have a mission, we don't have a vision, we don't have values. And like we're missing a standard.
absolutely.
And I said, yeah, you are. You're missing a big standard. So we went in and we did values work with them. And it
Makes
reminded
sense.
me when I went back to Ohio to become a director, walking in there, and all of a sudden there's no values. There's no standard. No kidding, there's no standard. There's no values. However, the staff bought into the concept of let's assess what we do, how we do it, and what words are important to us to drive our values. So in
That's
that
good.
particular case, we came up with, and I say we as a team, because again, this was the whole concept of, the people over the process of everything. Bring the people together, work on the process together. And I love how you put in there also the people over the profit,
Profit. Yeah.
because that's an equally important piece. And when we developed our values, it was simple. It was three
Mm-hmm.
words. It was community, sustainability, and service.
And
Those
that
were
is
the
so clear. That is,
yeah.
I think the fewer the better, really.
hmm
That's really good.
When I work with organizations and they want to do values driven training, and they want to, hey, we want to define who we are. Great. My first thing to them is what I work with teams on is there are no more than 3 to 5 values, and they're like one word or a hyphenated word. Are you good with that? And they're all like, yes. One organization ages ago was like, hey, well, we have sentences. And I was like, no, that's not values. Your
That's
values are one word. You
hmm
define what that value means to you in a sentence, but that sentence is not what you're publishing.
that's right.
Your
Good point.
values. I loved how you highlighted some places you walk in and it's painted on the wall.
Hmm
That's the beauty of it. That's where it belongs. And if
Exactly.
and if you've ever seen the movie Rudy, the
Oh my
movie
goodness.
the movie
This weekend.
Rudy. Oh, you did?
No, I
Oh,
haven't
you
seen it. I'm
will.
like, maybe this weekend
Yeah.
I'll have to watch it. Rudy. Okay.
The movie Rudy like highlights Notre Dame, and one of the things you see in the locker room is play like a champion. Notre Dame is notorious for this. They have a sign as they walk out, play like a champion. That's their motto, and they hit the sign as they walk out.
Mm,
Most sports teams have something like this. And when we go in, first thing I'm asking, the second we've defined the values, where are you posting this? It should be in your magazine. It should be on your website. It should be in the back office on a nice board, not written on your dry erase board.
right.
It should be a
Not written
good,
in the sand.
not written in the sand. So these are all really important things, and those values. I love how you brought values to the table today. That's what sets the standard.
Absolutely. Hmm.
And then from there, now once we have a standard in place, now we all get to move forward in the same direction.
In the same direction. Hmm.
And this is really where the boundaries come in. How do we set up boundaries? And we protect the energy here. We have to have protection of our energy and expectations. Standards set those expectations. So now we know where to go. We did our HQ formula in the last episode, so that helps get our energy to where it needs to be. And what we talked about last episode was such a building process to this. And what happens more so when your boundaries get violated, now you and I want to talk about let's put these boundaries together
Yes.
because that's going to protect our capacity. We only have so much capacity. We all get the same 24 hours in a day. And
That's
it,
exactly right. Oh my goodness, Jason. One of the things that people don't get, especially people pleasers, right? Is that
mm,
whenever you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else because you can't do this and that. I mean, there is some both and, but a lot of things are either or. And so if you have those standards and those values, when a decision comes across your desk as a leader, are you going to say yes or are you going to say no? That that is the boundary because if you are always saying yes, I was thinking about, especially because with the World Cup and of course we got the Olympics coming up in LA. I mentioned I'm from California. I was thinking about how I think as a culture, as Americans, we always root for the underdog. We want to see that underperformer succeed. And so we can pour a lot into that and pour and pour and pour until we're depleted. And boundaries are so important because, yes, we want to be able to say yes to that person, but there are times when we're going to have to say, you know what, no, I need to focus on this other person or this other project today. And it's hard. I always like to say that boundary breakers don't like boundary makers because they're
ooh,
so used to being able to cross the line to push until they get you to help them. And it's hard to set that, you know what, I'm going to have to say no this
hmm
time. But if you have those values, you have those standards, you know, I mean, even that play like a champion with Notre Dame. That means that if you tap on that sign and your ACL is bothering you, you're like, can I really give my best to the team today? Maybe I should say something to coach about not starting. And that's hard. I have to say no to playing, and I love playing, but I'm not going to be able to play like a champion today. And so you're saying no to something, but you're saying yes to the value, to the standard, to the greater, effort of the whole team. So important.
hmm I agree. And that was beautifully said. One of the
Thank
things
you.
that I would love to dive into is whether it was you or someone you were working with, have you ever seen someone that was struggling with setting up these boundaries? Because we know if we don't have a good boundary set in, now we're becoming reactive to a lot of things. And then all of a sudden, end of the day, we're upset. Or even worse, we get a little bit resentful when we don't get what
Oh
we
my
needed to get
goodness.
done. So
I
have
tell you what, I got to tell on myself, Jason,
uh-oh.
because it's me. You know, you become an expert in something because you have to, right? It's like, this
Yeah.
isn't working. I need to find another way. And I always say that if we don't have healthy boundaries, it doesn't just show up in our professional lives. It
Mhm.
doesn't just show up in our personal lives. It doesn't just show up in this one relationship or working on this one project. It shows up everywhere. It shows
Yeah.
up everywhere. And so I wasn't really aware as a self-employed person of some of my boundary issues until I went to work for a really large employer. And it had, boy, did it have its values and its standards. In fact, that was the place where they were painted on the wall.
Mm.
And I, I was a writer for this organization, and I had deadlines that I had to get articles out. And I had the hardest time pinning these people down because I couldn't just write an article without talking to the content expert, without getting the information that I needed.
Uh-huh.
But I could not get them to return my emails, to get them to confirm a time for an interview. And I found myself, you know, scrambling at the last minute, getting this article together so that it could print on time. And as I began to work through some of the boundary issues I had in some personal areas, it was like, Jason, it was like this light bulb went on. I'm doing the same thing at work. And so as I began to apply some of the things that I was learning, it was amazing how all of a sudden I was getting these people to respond to me in time to write the article instead of cramming it done at the last minute. And they were simple little things, simply giving them the deadline right up front and saying, I'm going to need this by this date. I'm going to need this by this date. And if this doesn't happen, this article won't be in the issue, period. And I mean, it sounds so simple, but it made all the difference in the world.
You are
And
absolutely nailing a great point. Keep going. Keep going.
no, I
Sorry
was
I
just
cut
going
you
to
off.
say, and talk about having energy.
Mhm.
I instead of being resentful, I was excited, and I I could go on and on.
I
That's
can
why I'm so
see.
passionate about boundaries.
I
Yeah.
can see the excitement coming out, and what you really just brought to us was such a simple, comfortable way to set a boundary. Literally just by putting in deadlines. I cannot even tell you how many times I have worked with people that don't give a clear deadline on something
Mhm.
and then randomly and arbitrarily come and ask you if that thing is done yet.
Right.
We know as a person, as a society, we're going to push things if they don't have a clear deadline because something else always needs done.
That's so true. And again, if we set our priorities based on deadlines, then I can I can make a false deadline too, right? If I
I was
know
just going to ask you
someone,
about that.
I was just going to tell you, and I'm not going to name names, but my husband and I, we call it the jerk factor. I
Love it.
probably shouldn't say that, but it's like whenever we're figuring out deadlines, we know, oh, we need to, factor in the jerk factor here. It's like at a 10 with this person. And so you know how that is. Even if you have someone that you meet for lunch who is always late, instead of making
Hmm.
that lunch date at noon, you make it at 11:40, knowing they'll show up at noon. It's just what you do. And that's part of keeping yourself from being resentful and pouring and wasting 20 minutes of your own time. I will never forget. I was actually in college when someone told me that you were disrespecting someone else's time every time you were late. And it was like, wow, that's powerful.
There's so much truth to that.
Hmm.
So I want to tell you two secrets. One secret is truly a secret. No one will know who it is. There was one person I worked with in my past that I purposely gave them a wrong deadline every single time after I
Hmm.
had worked with them for almost a year. I always had to give them the wrong deadline, and it was always earlier because they were always late or they were always
Hmm.
right at, if you said it's due Tuesday at 5, they're there Tuesday at 5 with it when you're really thinking, man, it would have been great to have this like an hour before I left work.
Right.
Now, the other funny one I'll tell you though, and this is going to be really funny because I know my family listens to this, and I know my cousin, my cousin Tommy, who's my little brother, I know he'll be hearing this. So my wife and I purposely would tell everybody on my dad's side of the family, we always tell them the wrong time. So if we want to do a cookout at 11, or if we wanted to do a cookout at 5, 5 was a really good example. One year we said 5. We actually told all of them 3.
Wow. two
Guess what?
hours.
Yes. Yes. So it was like 3 different groups of people that were going to come over from that side of the family. Everybody else we told, oh, we'll probably, 5 o'clock, but if you want to get here at like 4:30, 4:45, we can all mingle for a while first. My whole group of people from my dad's side of the family, we told them 3 o'clock. They rolled in between 4:30 and 4:45. I was
Yeah,
like, this is
that's
perfect. We know exactly how to handle them.
that's right.
I mean, they weren't
That's
going to
good.
change. And my
Oh,
cousin,
you
my
remind me of a saying. Instead of saying, I don't trust you, I don't trust you.
mhm,
In my brain, I probably haven't actually ever said this to someone's face, but I trust you to do exactly the thing you've always done, to be exactly the way you've always been. I absolutely trust you. In response to, don't you trust me?
mhm,
I do. I've learned to trust you to be the way you are. And again,
absolutely.
it's up to us to set the boundaries so that we can work in those difficult situations with those difficult people who
That's
are always late or always whatever it is. Yeah.
I really like the positive reversal of that because oh no, I absolutely trust that you are
Hmm.
going to do it this way
Yeah,
and I am going to be prepared for this,
exactly.
which you just threw me such a nice softball for the easiest transition ever to preparation. And preparation is a huge piece of this. And how are we prepared to show up? So you and I just highlighted a couple real basic things of being prepared, like for a cookout or something like that. Or in your case, you were just mentioning, I trust that you are going to do this.
Hmm.
I'm going to be prepared for you to do this. One of the things in my leadership journey that I saw so much was people walking into meetings or people getting prepared for a project. And let me rephrase that. When I say getting prepared for the project in that case, I don't know that I would call it prepared. They were walking in a little bit out there, a little bit unsure about what the heck they were doing. So for me, preparation became such an important piece of what I did because I didn't want to be that leader who came in unprepared and you have a whole staff or a group of people that are spending, like you highlighted earlier, they're
Hmm.
spending their time. So you need to be prepared to best serve their time. And I
Absolutely.
I
Mm.
witnessed so much that helped me design the open framework. And I actually worked with a couple teams in the last like 4 months on the open framework, and they were just mind blown because they were not having productive meetings and they needed to, whether it was on a policy or a project or even just personally being prepared. So even for me, I use this system sometimes just to personally be prepared for my day or for a couple things I have going on. So the
So I know
open,
as your guest, I'm the one being interviewed, but I want to ask you, the open framework is like OPEN. Does that stand for something? What is that all about?
well, thanks for leading me there. I love it.
So I'm like, open. I
Yeah.
like the
She's
word,
like, I
but
want
it's
to
got to
know
mean
already.
something. I want to know.
So the open framework is built on the premise of first we're going to outline and it's going to be an
Outline.
outline of what we need. So if I was getting ready for a meeting, it's going to be an outline of what needs to happen at this meeting. Or if I'm just getting prepared for my day, it's an outline of the things I need to accomplish today. Then it's going to be personalizing. So we have the outline. Now we're going to personalize. That personalize. If it's going to be a meeting, like a project meeting, especially, who needs to be there?
Mm.
We need to personalize this. What departments do I need there? Or what divisions do I need there? And what people from those divisions? Because we need to make sure we get the right input. If it's my day that I'm mapping out, it is personalizing for each of the people I'm going to meet with that day. And then the E is engage, because there is no point to bringing all of these people together and not having an engaging conversation that everyone has a voice at the table. There's a level of psychological safety that people feel comfortable. They can step up and say, I disagree with that. Or, hey, that's a really good thought. I had this thought that I think could better serve the community in this regard.
Oh my gosh, I don't want to interrupt you, but you're reminding me of this little reel I saw on social media last week. I died laughing. It said, obviously it was satirical, but it had a picture of a woman and it said, so and so was caught not attending any of her Zoom
Mm.
meetings and simply using a loop of her nodding and smiling.
Oh, wow.
Talk about not engaging. It's like, who that is an indictment, really, not on her, but on the people who never knew that she was engaging in the meetings because it was just a loop. Oh,
Hmm.
but it went on to say she was actually had a different full-time job. So she was earning money at both
Wow.
jobs just for having a video nodding on Zoom calls. But engagement is so important, obviously. So good point.
Yeah, it really is. And the what I always look at, I learned this a long time ago, is if you're going to have someone in a meeting, it should be a meaningful part of their day.
Absolutely.
They should be to either A, taking knowledge that they need to go mingle with and or talk with more people about, or they should be taking work out of there that I have X, Y, and Z I need to get done in preparation for the next meeting or in preparation for this thing starting. They shouldn't just sit there and come out of the meeting with nothing, no information to pass
Exactly.
on.
Hmm.
So the final piece to this is the navigate. So navigating now is how we set things forth and go forward. And navigating goes back to something you highlighted earlier that I loved with going into the boundaries. That navigate piece, we might have 8 of us in a room and 4 of us are going to get assignments and we're going to give a specific date or time in which they need to report back to us with the information.
Hmm.
And it might be just that, hey, we can you have this for the next meeting we have? It might be, can you have this by Wednesday? Today's Monday. Can you have it by Wednesday? Or today's
Right.
Thursday. Can you have it by next Tuesday? Or
Right.
it just,
Everybody leaves a meeting with their course charted for the next steps. That's the
yeah.
navigate. That's so good because
Hmm.
then there's not only expectations and accountability, but there's clear action steps. Like, what am
Hmm.
I supposed to do? That's really good.
And it became so important. And I can tell you when I started, no pun intended, but when I started navigating like this, you said the word accountability. The level of accountability for our team exponentially increased.
I
And it
bet.
was incredible to see. And it was also equally incredible to see the team hold the team accountable. It wasn't me. It was the
That's
teams.
good.
You said you were going to have this. What are you doing?
Mm,
And I worked. There was 2 other companies I worked with most recently with this, and it was a beautiful pathway for them. It creates a calm, clear confidence as they go. Calm in the sense of we all know what's going on. We all understand. There's a clarity. Okay. And then we're confident. We feel good about what we're doing and we know how to articulate this to people we work with and or the general community. And we use the alignment lights as well. Green, yellow,
hmm.
red alignment lights to be able to pause a meeting if we need to. And if someone's like, hmm, if someone has this ambiguous, I don't understand. I don't get this. And if you're watching this right now, you see me making a really weird face. Well, I don't know. I don't get this. That's a red light. Let's pause the meeting for a moment and check in. Hey, is everything okay? You look like you have something on your mind. Or if it's just a little bit like, huh, okay, yeah, someone looks like they're just not totally following, but half following. That's a yellow light. That's a pause. That red light really, I said pause, but that red light really is a stop. Stop the meeting. Check in. The yellow light is more of the pause. It's kind of like a,
Right.
hey, everything okay there, John? You doing okay? Did you have a follow-up question? So the alignment, if everything's green, everyone's like, yeah, we're in, let's
Yeah.
go. Obviously, you move forward.
Yeah.
So you hearing all this, you've brought a couple things to the table with the open framework and really added a lot of value there to the conversation piece of that. How does this really connect to a little bit of that I'm golden pathway that you've come up with? Because I would love to have the listeners learn just a little bit about that. I know we don't have like a whole keynote to do today, but if we could get just a piece.
Absolutely. Well, even calling it the I'm golden path was so crucial for me as a people pleaser with unhealthy boundaries. Um, I always, again, you mentioned that I come from a faith-based background as well and have been a leader and teaching and equipping people in my church community, Big C, big church community for many, many years, is the idea that we're all supposed to follow the golden rule, right? Do to others as you would have them do to you. And so I call myself a golden rule overachiever. I'm doing and doing and doing and doing for others, pouring into others, right? From an empty cup so many times,
Mm,
pouring out to the point of depletion. And so I realized it was one of those down in the pit, looking up realizations, light bulb moment, that I needed to balance the golden rule with another concept that is absolutely equally as important. And so I call it the I'm golden rule. Do for yourself what you selflessly do for
ooh.
others. And so, yes, by all means, follow the golden rule, do to others. You know, we've talked about valuing people over process, valuing people over profits. Absolutely so important to follow the golden rule. But at the same time, never forget that you're golden, right? You're
Mm,
golden too. And so that's why I call it the I'm golden path. And there's 7 steps on the path. And like you said, we're not going to get into a keynote, but the my keynote covers the first two, which
okay.
aren't really about the practical ways of dealing with self-neglect, of dealing with pouring out from an empty cup. Because all the way back to what we were saying about how you can't have boundaries without standards and you can't have standards without values. It goes back all the way to that core. It's the same with this idea of having boundaries is without self-awareness, you're not even aware of the self-neglect. And so you can't enter
Mm,
into that self-care. And so I start with the self awareness aspect. And one of the things I realized, Jason, was that I was training people how to treat me. And
hmm.
my girlfriend has a story that I just talk about convicting. She had a little dog that had torn his I think it was his MCL or ACL or something,
Oh,
and was limping around. And so of course she took it to the vet, paid an exorbitant amount of money to have that fixed, and then within just a few months, he tore the other one. So she
oh,
had to take him back. And, by this time, she's like, oh, my poor dog. I mean, this poor thing. And so the vet does the surgery again on the
mhm.
other leg, but the dog is not getting better. Not getting better. It's still limping, limping, limping. And she's like, I have paid way too much money for this dog not to get well. So she took it down to the vet and said, look, you must have done something wrong on the second surgery. You need to figure out what's going on. So she said the vet took the dog in the back. A little bit later, he comes out, and the dog is jumping up for a treat and pouncing after a ball and acting like there's absolutely nothing wrong. And my girlfriend said, what did you do? This is like a miracle. What did you do? He said, no, let me ask you.
Uh,
What did you do when you saw your dog limping? Well, I mean, I picked her up and I gave her a treat. And he said,
oh,
you trained your dog to limp. And I realized I was training all the people around me to expect me to come through for them at the last minute, right? To stay up
Mm.
until crazy hours to get that project done. I needed to become aware this starts with me. And so I focus on how we need to allow feelings and then act with intention instead of constantly reacting to every situation. How do I feel right now? And what am I going to do about it?
That makes so much sense. Wow, that's a really good story. I mean, I'm just picturing this dog now, and I'm picturing this dog being picked up every
I
time.
know.
I have a dog like that. We don't pick the dog up though. But if
Do
we leave that dog alone, she'll sleep under the bed all day.
ah.
So that reminded me of that. Though that is really big information there. And that's going to be a great keynote. I'm going to have to listen to this keynote. So we talk about boundaries. And when we have weak boundaries, they create stress. And I know
Mm-hmm.
you've gone into a little bit about that already when you were talking about some business before in the writer's part. Um, you've done some consulting as well. I know that early in my career, I was not good at setting boundaries, and I would just get pulled in so many directions. I'd be working so many hours per week, and next thing you know, I would hit burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I didn't know how to set boundaries. That was a stress I didn't need to create for myself.
Exactly. And
What?
it's so easy to fall into that trap though. Um, that's why my second pillar on that I'm golden path is to act with intention.
Hmm.
Um, the, I mean, reacting obviously is the opposite of being proactive. And I I saw that absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to say more because we are so politically divided right now. And it could have been either side of the aisle, could have been absolutely either side of the aisle. But we were involved in producing the television commercials for a candidate for office. And in this particular district, this person ran unopposed for many years. Um, but all of a sudden, the powers that be decided that they wanted to shift the political influence of the area. And so they started dumping lots and lots and lots of money into an opposition candidate to this well loved candidate.
Whoa.
And in the past, we had always produced these sort of very proactive, the whole spiel,
Hmm.
the promises the politicians make.
Yes.
But once they started getting hit with all of this, negative opposition research and all this stuff, then they
Mm.
had to react. A commercial would come out saying this. So then they would have to put out a commercial saying that. And it was this back and forth and back and forth. And I just watched the campaign people involved, they were just getting so worn out. It was a whole different experience. And so it's like, okay, how can you maintain that proactive sort of approach even when you're under fire and you have to react? It starts with where we started, Jason. You have to have those standards in place so that you can say, you know what? I don't even have to respond to that. That's ridiculous. Instead, I can restate this, this that people already know to be true about me, point to how I've kept promises in the past, point to certain things I've done instead of tit for tat kind of thing.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I love that story because we see it all the time in society.
Mm-hmm.
And then, one of the other things that is so challenging is when we become reactive on everything, our stress levels go through the roof.
Absolutely.
And let's
Been
be
there.
real. Let's be real. If our stress levels are so stinking high, what does our response look like?
Exactly.
Are we really bringing our best self forward if our stress levels are sky high? And I'm going to say no.
Mm-hmm.
When our stress levels are
Absolutely.
sky high, we're not thinking the way we normally think. And that's really what like brings all of this together. How do we eliminate the burnout and get to that fast forward motion of how do we have the brilliance with boundaries?
Yes. Yeah. That's my little spiel. You kind of gave me a plug there. I
Yeah,
take
take us through it.
teams from burnout to brilliance with boundaries.
Hmm.
So, because, like you said, you're not going to make your best decisions when you're reacting. You're not going to make your best decisions under pressure. So, if you already decide ahead of time, these are my values, I'm going to align with them. I'm going to move forward according to those standards I've established. And what does that look like in this situation? You don't have to make a decision in that emotional moment because you're like, this is how I always respond because this is who I am and who we are as an organization. And if you don't know, then I'm one of the again, one of the examples that I have of this, I have been a marketing consultant for many years, and so I help produce the digital marketing materials. I
Hmm.
don't place advertising or really guide and direct marketing teams. But I'm like, if they say we need a TV commercial or we need a brochure or we need a, whatever press release, that's where I come in. And yet, if I team up with an organization that doesn't have a marketing plan, it's just this crazy sort of flying from the hip.
Hmm.
And one example that I'll give is there was a healthcare organization. It was actually a group of primary care physicians, and they wanted to do strategic advertising. And so I said, well, let's look at your marketing plan. And they said, we don't have one. And so I said, well, we need to
Uh-oh.
write one. We need to write one. And so we
Yeah.
started there because, like, for example, February is Heart Health Month. The Wear Red for Women's Heart Awareness. Okay. So without a marketing plan, it's January 29th, and they're saying, oh my goodness, it's Heart Health Month next month.
Wow.
We need to do it, we need to get some ads out there. We need to, but when you have a plan in October, you're saying, now in February, we want to make sure we have these billboards or this or whatever. And oh my goodness, again, that makes and especially when, and this has happened too, I just saw a post on Facebook by our, doctor's office down the street, and they're promoting that I think it was Nurse Practitioner Awareness Day or something. We need to get pictures of our nurse practitioner out on social media and say thank you. And those are the kinds of things, Jason, you can just completely relieve and not be reactive because you've got your plan in place. You know what needs to be done. And it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And those are easy things to prepare for.
Absolutely, they are. Yeah.
I know, and one plug I'll give is at the time we're releasing this, it's gonna be it is we are now hitting week 2 in July. And what I want to kind of bring out then is going into what you said for February being the Heart Awareness Month. The month of July in the Parks and Rec field is Parks and Rec Month. So July is all about Parks and Rec Month, and it is about getting out to parks, experiencing different things, hitting rec centers, having time with family, having the ability to just simply go out and enjoy open park space, even by yourself and have lunch. It is all about Parks and Rec Month. So I encourage everyone to get out and enjoy a park, go to a rec center, get a workout, attend a program, go to a special event at your local park and recreation agency for the city that you live in. So I encourage everyone to get out for that. So
Well,
you given that, yeah.
to your point, I live in a county that obviously was proactive and aware of that
Mhm.
because last Saturday was the last Saturday in June, and they had this big campaign out. Join us for um, Plant a Tree Day.
Mm.
with basically what they said is we're all going to gather in these local parks and plant new trees and bushes and shrubs to beautify our parks prior to
Mm,
July being this month. And in fact, I just threw the flyer away. We're talking on a Monday, and I just threw it away yesterday because it's like this event was yesterday. And they were proactively preparing for beautifying the local parks prior to this month when they're driving everybody out to visit parks.
that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That is good planning on their part. Get a little park cleanup and everything gets
Yep.
going in the same direction. I want to ask you a quick question before we go to the next piece that's really important for us. I want to ask a quick question because I really love it. How did you put this together of the bringing it all together? How did you put that together of burnout to brilliance with boundaries? Because that is just poetic. I really like it. Is that the title of your keynote?
Well, actually, the title of my keynote is Doormat to Diamond. And that comes
Mm,
from a personal experience as well. The burnout to brilliance to boundaries is I am an author and everybody kind of has their signature things. I love alliteration. I love alliteration. And so I was thinking, you've got to have boundaries because of the burnout. But I
mhm.
needed another B. And I think I had a stroke of brilliance. And I
I'd
just came
say
out with burnout. It's, in fact, on my LinkedIn page, I have the word burnout with an arrow pointing to the word um, brilliance and then pointing to the word boundaries.
mhm.
So, but yeah, no, the name of my keynote is Doormat to Diamond. And the reason for that is because I actually, Jason, I used to have a front doormat that said, all are welcome here. Now, when I saw it in the store, it just seemed so kind and entreatable and oh, I'm just such a welcoming person. And so I bought it, I brought it home and I plunked it down on my front doorstep. And it wasn't long before I realized, you know what? No, all are not. There's some people that are not welcome here anymore. They have like crossed the line. So I picked up that doormat and I moved it to my back door. Well, we live out in the country. And so a lot of people will come through the side gate up onto our back porch. We actually have a doorbell on our back
Wow.
door. And I mean, it's country living, right? And so I'm like, you know what? It's usually the people that come right through your gate into your backyard and ring your doorbell that you need to have boundaries with. So I picked up that doormat and I moved it into my garage. And I told my husband, you're the only one that uses that door besides me. We push the garage door opener, right?
Mhm.
Drive in, push it again. And I said, most of the time, you're welcome here. So it's safe there. And so it's like I realized that I needed to do more than just hide that dumb doormat in my garage. I needed to stop letting people wipe their feet on me.
Mm,
Like I said earlier, I was training people how to teach me. I was training them that I would be their doormat. And now, what is a diamond? A diamond is
mm.
brilliant and beautiful and sparkles and isn't, depleted and dingy. It's stunning. And I'm like, that's what I want to be. And what's it going to take to get there?
I like that. That's deep. There's some great meaning in there. I really like that. That is
Thank you.
awesome. Wow. That really, if that doesn't make you listen to this and just pause for a moment and say, wow, there's a lot of depth in that. A lot of meaning too, because obviously this is a topic you talk about, very passionate about.
Yeah. Well, I too often, Jason, I see people who let people wipe their feet on them.
Yeah.
And and it's not even like if you're the CEO, then you can treat the janitor a certain way. No, no, um, no. Even if you're the janitor, you don't have to let people wipe their feet on you, and
Hmm.
you don't have a right. But people are going to be the way they are. That's why we set boundaries so that we can deal with these kinds of people. We can't change them, but we can teach them, you can't treat me that way.
Hmm.
And if it means you lose a job, you know what? That's hard, but stress kills people.
It
I
does.
mean, it does. If in fact, the statistics out of the CDC are remarkable because right now, 1 in 3 people, Jason, report being lonely, and 1 in 4 report that they don't have any emotional or social support at all.
Wow.
And these, there's like a macro study of all these statistics that show that deep levels of social isolation. Again, what did we just come through? We even talked about it, social isolating during COVID, but deep levels of that can increase an adult's risk of death by as much as 35%. And so you know what? Maybe when you draw the line, I already said earlier, boundary breakers don't like boundary makers. And if that boundary breaker is a boss, yes, you might have to end up finding another job. But again, that's where my faith comes in. It's going to happen. I
Hmm.
love Sound of Music with Maria. She's the main character in that wonderful old movie about World War II in Austria. And anyway, she was trying to be a nun and ended up being a nanny and ended up getting married. And it's just a lovely story. But she said, Reverend Mother always used to say, whenever the Lord closes a door somewhere, he always opens a window. And so I tend to look now for that open window. It's like, well, that's a closed door. That means the Lord's going to open a window for me somewhere. And instead of staring or kicking or beating down that closed door or, I mean, obviously, you might have some tears over a closed door. Certainly, I've been there. But then start looking for that open window. And I love that your framework is open because maybe you need to
The
just do
irony.
that personally, right? I
Hmm.
know. Go ahead and outline it and personalize it, engage, and then navigate your way from that closed door to that open window.
And that is so meaningful, and it's such a big deal because I will tell you right now, I'm someone that at the end of the day, whatever went on, if I can look and say I did everything I could to try to make whatever situation right, even if the boss was being a jerk about something.
Mm-hmm.
If I did everything I could do, then I can look in the mirror and say I did what I can do. I put my best foot
That's right.
forward. I'm not, if someone's worried about getting rid of me for doing the right thing, so be it.
So be
I
it.
can live with that versus doing the wrong thing. We see so many TV shows out there where someone does wrong and they just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into the wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I just watched a series called Bloodline that was like that. Every episode went deeper and deeper and deeper into the wrong. And we were like, how the heck? It just crossed over into seasons. So really, for me, it becomes so clear. Standards equal clarity, boundaries equal protection.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, some of that protection is for your staff.
Absolutely.
It's not just for you. Boundaries equal protection. Open framework equals preparation. And through all of this, we create sustainable leadership. The one thing before we go, the one thing I'd like to do is I know for me, what I would tell the listeners is utilize the open framework.
Mm-hmm.
Take this as a step. This is an actionable step. You can hit me up via email. My email is jason@jasonchaddock.com. You can hit me up at that if you want to learn more about the open framework. You can go to my website. It's just my name, jasonchaddock.com. You can go to my LinkedIn page and hit me up on the open framework if you want to learn more. To me, that's so important. That open framework is going to give us the outline. It's going to personalize things to know who needs to be present, how we do this, engage everybody, and navigate, come up with clear navigational steps. Shawna, what about you?
Well, for me, same. I have a website, ShawnaMarieBryant.com. And Shawna is spelled with a W, Shawna. And you can find me there. I would love to come and share my keynote. I mentioned I teach the first two pillars in the keynote, which are allow feelings and act with intention. I like to say that all feelings are welcome, but all behaviors are not.
Mm,
And so we learn to allow feelings because stuffing the feelings, being reactive, that does not lead to maintaining our standards a lot of times.
right.
But when we act with intention, we guide our response to those situations. We know when to say yes, when to say no. So very important. And then I have a master class that is a follow up to the keynote that teaches the rest of the steps on the path, and it helps you through exercises really begin to not just, we talked about how it starts with self-awareness, but then you begin to point out those areas of self-neglect and learn self-care, things that you can do, and then begin to not just establish those boundaries, but maintain them through a
Mm.
lifetime and how it looks in different situations and that kind of thing. And so I would love to help any listener with that. In fact, I have a course page on my website that talks a little bit more about the masterclass, as well as a speaking page that talks about the keynote. And so I would direct you to my website for the most information.
I appreciate you sharing that. And for the listeners, we'll also put this in the show notes so that way you don't have to memorize everything as we're talking.
Good.
I'll add both of our email addresses plus websites on there so y'all can see those things. Shawna, I can't thank you enough for joining us. This was a huge episode, being able to cover standards, boundaries, and preparation. We know how critically important these are for quality leadership. So thank you
Absolutely.
so
Mm.
much for joining us on this and walking us through a little bit of not just your keynote, but who you are and what you've experienced and why this has been so meaningful for you along the journey. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Listeners, as you know, you can catch us on all major podcasts. And we also have our YouTube channel. This is the Third and 30 podcast. And you can find us on the YouTube. I also have my own YouTube that I post these things to as well. And we'll be able to get that information out soon. And then don't forget to come back for episode 4 as we hit, I'm thinking it's going to be week 3 or 4 of July that we'll post episode 4, which is going to be one of my favorite topics. It's one of the things that I do my keynote on, and it's going to be about accountability and self awareness. I'm
Wow,
so
talk about a
excited.
great segue from this one. I'll be listening.
I'll tell you what, it's almost like we put the summer leadership series together in order. It is going to be accountability and self awareness. And this is truly the leadership duo that changes everything.
Mhm.
I've discovered that in my life. Again, Shawna, thank you so much for joining us. This has been such a great episode and also getting to hear your stories from a whole different perspective. Again, you can find us on all major podcasts, and we look forward to hearing your feedback as we continue to go. This is the Third and 30 podcast. We're out.